Let's talk about something most people tiptoe around. There's a whole conversation happening about older women and relationships. Thoughts men have, perceptions they carry, but it rarely gets said out loud. And here's the thing. Pretending these thoughts don't exist doesn't make them go away. It just leaves us all guessing, wondering, sometimes hurting without understanding why. I want to be clear from the start. What we're exploring today isn't about painting all men with the same brush or suggesting there's some universal male mindset. People are individuals. Their thoughts, their attractions, their motivations, they're as varied as fingerprints. But there are patterns, common assumptions that float around in our culture about women over 60 and dating. Some of these thoughts are rooted in outdated stereotypes. Others come from genuine confusion about what women at this stage of life actually want. This isn't a space for judgment, not of men, and certainly not of you. Your worth isn't determined by what anyone thinks or doesn't think about you. That's foundational. But understanding what might be going on beneath the surface, that can be powerful. It can help you navigate situations with clearer eyes, protect your heart where needed, and recognize genuine connection when it appears. So we're going to pull back the curtain on some of these unspoken thoughts, not to upset you, but to equip you. Because knowledge is always better than guessing. One of the first assumptions many men carry, often without even realizing it, is about availability. There's this perception that older women are somehow more accessible, less complicated when it comes to commitment and expectations. Let's unpack where that comes from, and more importantly, what it means for you. There's a storyline that plays out in many men's minds, sometimes consciously, often not. It goes something like this. A woman over 60 has probably been through a marriage, maybe a divorce. Her children are grown, she's financially independent, she's lived a full life. So surely she must be more relaxed about where a relationship goes. Less interested in labels, less concerned about commitment, more open to something casual or undefined. This perception doesn't come from nowhere. Our culture has long told a story that women in their 20s and 30s are relationship-focused, marriage-minded, maybe even desperate for security. But a woman past 60, she's already done all that. She's had her family, built her life. So the assumption becomes she just wants companionship now. Someone to share dinners with, maybe travel, enjoy physical intimacy without all the heavy expectations. Some men find this idea incredibly appealing. They see it as refreshing, a chance for connection without pressure, without the weight of building a future together because, in their minds, you've already built yours. Others approach with a more transactional mindset, thinking you'll accept less because you supposedly want less. Here's what gets lost in that assumption. Desire doesn't retire at 60. The longing for deep, meaningful connection doesn't have an expiration date. Yes, many women at this stage know themselves better. They're not interested in game playing or wasting time on relationships that don't serve them. But that's not the same as wanting less. If anything, it means wanting more authenticity, more respect, more genuine partnership. The reality: some older women are indeed looking for companionship without the complications of merging households or finances. Others are absolutely open to deep commitment, even remarriage. And many are still figuring out what they want. There's no single truth here, which is precisely why the assumption becomes problematic. On dating apps, this plays out in predictable ways. Men might approach older women with a casualness they wouldn't dare with someone younger, making assumptions about what you'll accept before they even know your name. Initial conversations might skip right past the getting to know you phase, assuming a fast track to physical intimacy, because surely you're past all that romantic buildup. This creates an uneven playing field from the start, where your actual desires and boundaries can get steamrolled by someone else's preconceived notions. But availability and expectations aren't the only assumptions at play. There's another layer that runs even deeper, touching on something men often struggle to admit, even to themselves. And it has everything to do with how society has taught them to see age and attraction. Let's talk about something most men won't say directly to your face. They've been conditioned their entire lives to equate youth with beauty. And unlearning that programming feels like swimming against a powerful current. Walk into any bookstore, scroll through any streaming service, flip through magazines at the checkout line. The romantic leads, the objects of desire, the women presented as attractive, they're overwhelmingly younger. When an older woman appears in a romantic context, it's often treated as novelty, comedy, or a cougar storyline that reduces her to a punchline. Men absorb these messages just as deeply as women do. By the time a man reaches his 50s or 60s, he's spent decades watching Hollywood celebrate men his age, paired with women 20 years younger, while relationships going the other direction get raised eyebrows. He's heard the locker room talk, the jokes about letting yourself go, the casual cruelty directed at women who dare to age visibly. So when he finds himself genuinely attracted to a woman over 60, he might feel that attraction fully and authentically. But he's also carrying the weight of what his buddies might say, what his adult children might think, what strangers might assume when you walk into a restaurant together. Some men won't even allow themselves to acknowledge the attraction. They'll meet a vibrant, beautiful woman their own age and immediately redirect their attention to someone younger. Not because the attraction isn't there, but because pursuing it feels like admitting something about themselves they're not ready to face. That maybe they're old too. That their own youth is behind them. Others feel it but hide it, especially in social settings. They might be warm and engaged with you privately, but distant when friends are around, as though your age is something to be managed rather than simply irrelevant. The double standard cuts deep here. A man with gray hair and laugh lines is distinguished, seasoned, silver fox material. A woman with the same markers of a life well lived gets described with far less generous language. Men know this double standard exists. Many benefit from it. And confronting it means examining their own complicity in a system that's been kind to them. But here's what's also true. Attraction doesn't actually follow the rules we're told it should. Real-life desire is far messier and more individual than any cultural script. The confidence that comes from decades of living in your own skin, the ease of someone who stopped performing and started simply being, the particular light in someone's eyes when they laugh about something only experience could teach them. These things register as deeply attractive to men who've done their own growing up. You'll find couples everywhere who've dismissed the age expectations entirely. Older women with younger partners, peers who found each other after 60, second and third marriages that look nothing like the first. They thrive not despite the age factor, but because they've chosen substance over optics, connection over conformity. The men who can see past the cultural noise, who've developed their own definition of beauty that includes character and presence, and the gorgeous complexity of a lived life. Those men exist. And they're often the ones worth your time anyway. Because ultimately, what men think about attraction and age reveals far more about their own maturity than it does about your worth. And that leads us to something more hopeful. What happens when a man actually gets past these surface concerns and discovers what deeper connection with an older woman really offers? Here's what men discover when they move past the noise and actually connect with an older woman. Conversations that go somewhere real. A man in his 50s once told me he'd been dating a woman 8 years older, and what struck him most was that he could say, "I'm worried about my mother's declining health," and get back something thoughtful, something drawn from her own experience navigating that exact terrain. Not platitudes, not advice from a self-help book, actual wisdom earned through her own losses and caregiving years. This is what emotional maturity looks like in practice. It's the ability to hold space for difficult feelings without trying to fix them immediately or make them about herself. It's knowing that not every disagreement is a catastrophe, because she's weathered enough real storms to recognize the difference between weather and climate. Men notice this, even if they don't always name it. After enough relationships where every conflict felt like the end of the world, where insecurity drove constant reassurance seeking, where communication meant guessing games and hidden tests, the clarity of a woman who can simply say what she means and hear what you mean becomes profoundly attractive. She's had decades to figure out what actually matters to her. She's not trying on different personalities to see which one you'll like best. She knows whether she wants companionship or commitment, adventure or stability, and she's not afraid to tell you. This eliminates so much of the exhausting ambiguity that plagues earlier relationships. The conversations deepen too. She can talk about more than just the present moment because she has context. She remembers other economic downturns, other political upheavals, other cultural shifts. She's watched her own assumptions get challenged and rebuilt. This creates a richness in dialogue that men who value substance find magnetic. Her empathy comes from the earned kind of understanding. She's likely experienced loss, disappointment, unexpected plot twists. She's been the villain in someone else's story and had to reckon with that. She's been hurt and done the work to heal rather than just passing that hurt along. This creates a capacity for compassion that includes both of you. Of course, some men struggle with what they call baggage, her past relationships, her established life, her fully formed opinions. They want the depth that comes from experience, but none of the history that created it, which is like wanting a garden without any soil. But men who've done their own emotional work recognize that her past isn't baggage. It's foundation. And that foundation makes possible the kind of partnership where both people can actually be themselves. Which brings us to something that often surprises men when they date older women. Her independence isn't just emotional. It's practical, financial, built into the entire architecture of her life. She's already built her life. She has her own home, or at least her own established living situation. She's been managing her own finances for decades. Through divorces maybe, through widowhood perhaps, through career ups and downs certainly. She knows what her retirement accounts look like. She's made her own investment decisions, her own mistakes, her own recoveries. For some men, this is incredibly attractive. There's no pressure to be the sole provider, the financial savior, the one who has to have all the answers. She's not looking for someone to rescue her or fund her lifestyle. She wants a partner, not a parent or a patron. This creates a fundamentally different dynamic, one based on choice rather than need. But let's be honest about the other side. Some men find this threatening. They've been conditioned to believe their value in a relationship comes from being the provider, the one with resources, the financial anchor. When a woman has already anchored herself, it can trigger a quiet panic. What do I bring to the table if she doesn't need what I thought I was supposed to offer? There's an unspoken fear of being seen as less than, of being the one who earns less, has less saved, owns less. Some men worry they'll be viewed as opportunistic, as someone trying to benefit from her stability rather than contribute equally. The traditional script gets flipped, and not everyone knows how to improvise. Here's what matters. Mutual respect trumps matching bank accounts. A healthy partnership isn't about identical financial situations. It's about transparent conversations regarding money, aligned values about spending and saving, and shared goals for the future you're building together. Her financial independence means she can contribute meaningfully to joint expenses, retirement planning, travel, whatever life you're creating. But it also means you need to talk openly about expectations. Does she expect to maintain separate finances? How do you handle situations where one person wants to spend on something the other considers frivolous? What happens if health issues change either person's financial picture? These aren't romantic conversations, but they're necessary ones. And frankly, her experience makes them easier. She's had these discussions before. She knows what happens when you avoid them. The real gift of her financial stability is freedom. Freedom to build a relationship based on genuine compatibility rather than economic necessity. Which raises the question, beyond the practical matters of money and independence, what actually brings two people together across different life stages? What actually brings two people together? Shared interests, certainly. But here's what men think but rarely say. They wonder if there's enough common ground. He's thinking about Saturday mornings. You love antique markets and botanical gardens. He's into cycling or woodworking or still playing in a weekend softball league. Can these worlds mesh? He's genuinely asking himself whether your idea of a perfect evening matches his, whether you'll want to travel the same way, whether your energy levels align. This isn't about age, it's about life stage compatibility. And honestly, it matters less than most men initially fear. I know a couple who met at 65. She's a passionate birder who rises at dawn. He's a night owl who plays jazz piano at local venues. On paper, incompatible. In reality, she goes birding with her group 3 mornings a week. He has his Thursday night gigs, and Sunday afternoons, they garden together. Something neither did before they met. The magic isn't in doing everything together. It's in respecting each other's passions while building new shared experiences. Men do worry about physical limitations creating distance. What if she can't hike the trails he loves? What if his knees can't handle the dance classes she enjoys? Here's the truth: everybody ages differently. Some 70-year-olds run marathons. Some 50-year-olds struggle with chronic pain. Health isn't determined by birth year. What matters is attitude. Are you both willing to adapt? Maybe you don't hike 10 miles anymore, but you explore nature preserves with good paths. Maybe ballroom dancing becomes chair yoga you do together. Maybe travel shifts from backpacking Europe to river cruises where you can actually enjoy the journey. The deeper question men are really asking themselves: do we want the same things from this next chapter? Are you both looking for companionship or something more committed? Does one person want to downsize and travel while the other wants to stay rooted near grandchildren? Is one person still working while the other is fully retired? These are legitimate concerns that require honest conversation early on. Not first date conversation, but certainly before hearts get seriously involved. The beautiful thing about dating after 60, you've both learned that differences aren't deal breakers, they're opportunities. You know how to compromise because you've had decades of practice. But let's address what men really think about when considering all of this together. The complete picture of what a relationship with an older woman actually means for their life. What they think is this: she knows herself. She won't waste my time or hers pretending to be someone she's not. That's the real gift of your age. You've spent decades figuring out what you need, what you'll tolerate, and what you absolutely won't. Men find this clarity incredibly attractive because it means less guesswork, less drama, less walking on eggshells wondering who you'll be from one day to the next. You've already raised your family or chosen not to. You've built your career or found fulfillment elsewhere. You're not asking him to complete you. You're already complete. You're simply asking, would you like to share this next chapter with me? That confidence, it's magnetic. So here's what I want you to take from everything we've discussed today. The thoughts running through men's minds when they meet you aren't the negative narratives society has fed you. They're not counting wrinkles or comparing you to younger women. They're genuinely considering whether you two could build something meaningful together. They're noticing your laugh, your intelligence, your independence. They're wondering if you'll appreciate their quirks. They're hoping you'll give them a chance despite their own insecurities about aging. They're thinking about Sunday morning coffee and weeknight dinners, and someone to call when something funny happens. Your value doesn't decrease with age. It transforms. You bring wisdom, emotional maturity, financial stability, and the freedom to actually enjoy a relationship without all the complications of earlier life stages. These aren't consolation prizes. These are genuine advantages. Stop waiting for permission to see yourself as desirable. Stop shrinking yourself to fit outdated ideas about who deserves romance. The right person isn't looking for perfection. They're looking for authenticity. Focus on being genuinely yourself. Pursue your interests passionately. Take care of your health because it makes you feel good, not to meet someone else's standards. When you show up as your authentic self, you attract people who appreciate exactly that. I'd love to hear your experiences. Have you been surprised by how men respond to you? What assumptions did you have that turned out wrong? Share your stories in the comments. Your perspective might be exactly what another woman needs to hear today. Remember this: you deserve companionship, passion, and deep connection. Age hasn't disqualified you from love. It's simply given you better tools to recognize it when it arrives.